All right, let's get into it. For a long time, we've thought of AI as, a tool, something that helps us out in the office. But today we're talking about a whole different ballgame. We're looking at a massive shift where AI isn't just helping, it's actually making decisions in the boardroom. We're going to break down how algorithms are starting to call the shots in some major companies. So let's just kick things off with a wild question. Could your next boss actually be an algorithm? And I'm not talking about some far-off science fiction movie plot. This is really happening in the corporate world right now, and it's making us totally rethink what leadership even looks like. So, how in the world did we get here? I know it feels like this happened overnight, but it really didn't. Let's actually trace the key moments that took AI from the server room all the way to the executive suite. What's just fascinating is how quickly reality completely blew past the predictions. Back in 2015, the World Economic Forum, they thought we had until 2026 to see an AI on a corporate board. But get this, a year before that prediction, an investment fund had already put an algorithm named Vital on its board. Then, just a couple of years later, you have Alicia T becoming the first AI manager of a publicly traded company. And by 2023, we're not just talking about board members anymore. We're talking about a full-on humanoid robot CEO named Mika. Wow, the future really got here fast. Okay, so what do these AI managers actually do, right? Are they just glorified number crunchers like super interns, or are they genuinely running the show? Let's take a look at the two main ways companies are building their new digital leadership. So, on one hand, you've got what's called the digital command center model. Think of it like one single, all-seeing AI brain that's plugged into every single part of the company. But on the other hand, you have companies automating very specific high-level jobs, like using an AI to pick the absolute best candidates for the board. And the idea is, eventually, you could combine these specialized AIs into what some people are calling a fused board. Basically, a whole team of AIs making big decisions together. To really wrap your head around the sheer power of that first approach, the digital command center, we've got to look at a real-world example. And it is stunning. We're talking about ADNOC, a major oil company, and its incredible system called Panorama. And believe me, this isn't just a piece of software. It's basically the company's central nervous system. The scale here is it's mind-blowing. Panorama is pulling in real-time data from this massive corporate empire, and it's being fed by about 10 million sensors. 10 million! It even creates digital twins, these perfect virtual copies of real-world assets, so it can run simulations and predict what's going to happen next. And it uses blockchain to keep all that information secure, guiding a company that has over $60 billion in turnover. The big takeaway here isn't just about being efficient. It's about creating a business that can react and predict things at a speed that we humans, well, we just can't match. Now, with all that power, all that data focused into one system, you have to ask the big question, right? What could possibly go wrong? I mean, how do we make sure these incredibly complex systems are being fair and transparent and that they're accountable for their decisions? This is what everyone is calling the black box problem. And at the heart of that problem is this: algorithmic bias. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out scenario. So if you train an AI on data that reflects our own historical human biases, in hiring or promotions or investments, the AI isn't just going to learn those biases, it can actually amplify them and do it at a scale we've never seen before. It can make biased decisions with terrifying efficiency. And this bias can creep into the system at basically every stage. I mean, it starts with the input. The data itself might be skewed from the get-go. Then, during the training, the model learns all the wrong lessons from that bad data. And finally, even the human programmers can accidentally build their own unconscious biases right into the AI's code without even realizing it. So you see, the problem can sneak in from three different directions. The good news is regulators are starting to wake up to this. In the European Union, for example, people now have what's called a right to an explanation for decisions that are made by algorithms. This is a direct shot at cracking open that black box. It forces companies to explain why their AI made a certain decision that affects a person's life. It's a huge push for transparency. Okay, so if regulation is one part of the answer, what about the technology itself? Well, this brings us to a really fascinating idea for a solution: creating a dedicated machine-readable rulebook just for the AIs. It's a concept some people are calling the iBoard or the intelligent board. The core idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's really powerful. Instead of trying to make an AI think like a person, you create two totally separate sets of corporate policies. You've got one for the humans, written in plain language, full of nuance, based on our values. And then you have another one just for the AI, written in a super clear, objective, data-driven way that leaves absolutely zero room for misinterpretation.
For example, take a concept like fairness. For us, that's a really complex idea, right? It's based on values. But for an AI, you can translate it into concrete, measurable rules. So, fair treatment can be defined as things like ensuring informed consent for how data is used, or applying non-discriminatory criteria, or making sure that risks are distributed fairly across different groups. You're basically teaching the machine the rules of the game in a language it literally cannot misunderstand. You're building ethics right into its code.
All right, now let's zoom the camera all the way out. If we can actually solve these technical and ethical problems, what does the long-term future of AI-driven companies even look like? Well, now we're starting to get into the territory of a concept that has fascinated scientists and futurists for decades: the singularity. The technological singularity. In the business world, this could mean that companies run by these hyper-efficient AIs will start to outperform their human-led competitors so dramatically that it creates this unstoppable feedback loop. They'll have more money and resources to build even smarter AIs, which leads to this explosion of intelligence, creating a marketplace that operates at a speed and complexity that we humans just can't even comprehend anymore. And this just completely changes the conversation about what leadership is. The old debate was about the best way for humans to manage. Should it be a collaborative team approach, or should it be a top-down, one-person-in-charge style? The new debate, it's totally different. It's about what form our AI managers should even take. Should they be these invisible, intelligent systems like Panorama, or should they be human-like androids like Mika? And that brings us to our final thought, and it's a really provocative question. This was asked when Sophia, the robot, was actually granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia. It forces us to face the deepest ethical questions in this whole revolution. As we build these new kinds of intelligence and even start to give them rights, what does that say about our own values and the rights we give to each other? That's definitely something to think about.